Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue, build $1 trillion in global GDP, and 10 million jobs. And in support of that mission, we've been doing these free mentoring roundtables since the fall of 2008, when we started experimenting with this format. These roundtables predate the 1 Million by 1 Million program by several years, and it is this experiment of online mentoring, virtual mentoring from all over the world that led us to eventually launching 1 Million by 1 Million in November of 2010. This is the 466th session. Over 100,000 people have participated in these roundtables from all over the world. And frankly, while in the beginning when we started doing this, the bulk of the entrepreneurs were from the US and from India, today it's everywhere. We even see entrepreneurs from places like Ghana and Botswana, and it's really been fascinating how people are just finding out about us where we do no marketing whatsoever. So something is going on in a purely organic, viral way that is very, very interesting. The event is being recorded. You will find every single roundtable recording on our YouTube channel. This one will go there as well. And on Twitter, we're at 1M by 1M and at Romana. You can follow either. We publish a lot of interesting content. Hashtag 1M1M is the tag for live tweeting the show today, in case you are doing so. These are the call-in instructions. We're not quite ready for you to call in yet. We have a number of scheduled presentations before. You can call in, but please do plan on calling in, line up your questions and participation points. This is a roundtable. We want you to participate as much as possible. While the scheduled discussions are going on, the public chat is wide open, so please, by all means, participate through the public chat, ask questions, share your thoughts, and we will open up the line after the scheduled presentations are done. Before we start our first presentation today, let me remind you that December 1st is the deadline for the Blackboard 1M by 1M Social Good Startup Challenge. Blackboard is a public SaaS company, and they have cloud software for catering to the social good world. And by social good, it's an umbrella term for a number of different categories, number of different verticals, nonprofits, foundations, corporate social responsibility, healthcare, edtech. There are various categories, arts and cultural organizations, various categories in which Blackboard has products, and they also are offering integration into their platforms and co-marketing into their 45,000 plus customers. So very interesting opportunity. There's also a 5,000 to 25,000 grant range available from Blackboard Ventures that startups applying for this challenge will be considered for. And you get a membership, a scholarship to the 1 Million by 1 Million premium program. So that's the Blackboard 1M by 1M challenge, and applications are due again on December 1st. Be sure to send in your applications, and we look forward to reading them. Today, we're going to start the session with a conversation with Arijit Sengupta, founder and CEO of Aible. Arijit is a serial entrepreneur and a serial entrepreneur in AI. Welcome to the show, Arijit. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So let's get you introduced to our audience. You've done 2 AI startups. Tell us a bit about each of them. Let's start with what problems have you chosen to solve in either case?
Right. So the first startup was called BeyondCore. It started out of some research I had done as part of the Harvard Business School Business Plan contest. And what we were doing at the time was using AI to solve the problem of business intelligence. So think of it this way, analysts would go around and go through a lot of data trying to figure out what graphs to draw. They would rarely do statistical tests to confirm that the patterns they were putting in those graphs were actually actionable, right? It might be just an outlier, a blip that would show up as being an important pattern. And we just believed there was a better way to do it. So we built this product which would use AI to, it would literally point it at a data set and say, what's driving my revenue or what's driving my customer churn? And it would look at many, many, many possible graphs, do the statistical analysis, and turn it into an animated briefing, which we had made it sound a lot like a McKinsey consultant. So we literally observed how McKinsey consultants presented to executives, and we had it talk the human through an animated briefing, telling them what's important. We would also give them downloadable PowerPoint slides with speaker notes and Word document reports on the data. That went on to being getting a cool vendor from Gartner. It then became a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for analytics. Gartner basically said that that approach of what they now call augmented analytics, they used to call it smart data discovery in those days, that was disrupting analytics. Clay Christensen ended up writing an article in Harvard Business Review where he said that we were disrupting McKinsey, which actually got us into a lot of trouble with McKinsey in those days. But they were great partners in those days until Clay wrote that article. But what was fun about it is we had taken something that was very complex, that you needed a lot of expertise to do well, and turned it into something where anybody could be empowered by it. Anybody could use it. After we got the Magic Quadrant, what ended up happening was we had also partnered with Microsoft, SAP, Salesforce. If you think of the major software providers, we had partnered with them. So several of them started wanting to acquire us, and eventually we became part of Salesforce, where BeyondCore became a part of Salesforce Einstein, and specifically Salesforce Einstein Discovery, Einstein Data Insights, and a few other of the Einstein capabilities. So that was the first one.
Arijit, can I stop you for 1 second and ask you one strategy question in how you navigated BeyondCore? What vertical did you go after, or was it completely a horizontal play?
Yeah, I deliberately did not want to go vertical specific because the way AI works, it is completely driven by the data. So one of my assumptions going in was this does not need to be vertical specific. And if we actually went vertical specific, which is what investors and others always prefer because you can have a more focused market, my concern was it would not actually work out. Now, we should revisit this question when I come to the Aible story because I've learned a lot more since then. So there's some interesting twist to it when I come to the Aible story. But in the BeyondCore days, it was very horizontal. We deliberately went and made sure we were working with the largest banks, largest insurance companies, largest CPG firms, largest manufacturers. You pick a domain, we probably did a project there. A lot of stuff in healthcare. And the reason for it was I've always had this assumption that AI is fundamentally a horizontal play if done correctly. And that's what in BeyondCore we did not specialize at all. And
did you specialize on any use case across those verticals?
So I think I should move to the Aible story for a second because the things you're pointing out is the issue we ran into is that when you don't have any use case to focus on, you're going to it becomes very difficult to sell. It becomes very difficult to have a structured
That's exactly where I'm going with this. That's the reason I'm driving you down this track is to exactly highlight that. So go ahead and explain what you're doing with Aible, and then we'll come back to a comprehensive strategy discussion afterwards.
Yeah, but the point you're making, once we were acquired by Salesforce, of course, went very focused, right? So Salesforce went with, hey, if you are trying to do a sales opportunity optimization, here's what you should do. If you are trying to improve CSAT in a service operation, this is what you should do. And it was fascinating to watch how Salesforce actually does its business. It's impressive, right? Very metrics driven, very focused. We created these trainings that were very use case focused at that point, right? In Aible, what we have done is, even though the technology is very horizontal, and to take a step back and tell you what Aible does, just like BeyondCore was using AI to create BI, what we found was by the time 2018 had come around last year, essentially everybody was trying to do AI. And they were running into the same problems people ran into in trying to do BI, which is there were not enough experts around, and doing best practices is actually quite difficult. So at Aible, we started doing AI by using AI. And we were able to use a lot more development that had happened in the domain of AI. Like in BeyondCore, I had to build the underlying technologies myself. In the case of Aible, we could just use things like scikit-learn, TensorFlow, GBM, H2O.ai, take your pick, Spark ML. We were just able to use all of that. We were able to use AWS SageMaker. So underlying technologies had been done, so we focused on AI for AI. This time around, one of the things we did very quickly is, even though the technology is completely horizontal, we use these things we call blueprints, which are extremely use case specific. So I might have a Salesforce manufacturing sales blueprint. So what's happening is, if you are a manufacturing customer who's using Salesforce, you go to this blueprint, and the entire language is in the language of Salesforce and manufacturing. It's asking you questions in the language of manufacturing. It knows where to get the data from Salesforce, and you can tweak it a little if you need it to be different. But the entire point is having a guided end-to-end experience where in 9 minutes, and I kid you not, there are real case studies of this, in 9 minutes, we can go from a customer starting to use the product to having a deployed model connected to Salesforce. And that way you're getting customers to solve a business problem as opposed to, hey, I have a really cool technical tool that your team can use to solve the problem. Here we're solving the problem first and then saying, oh, by the way we solve this problem is just an example. If you now want to do marketing, if you now want to do finance, if we want to see how does invoice processing in SAP work, guess what? I have a blueprint for that too. But that land better be very focused. Otherwise, you're making the customer work really hard to get to that first bit of value.
Right. And that's exactly where I was driving this conversation. Since you did BeyondCore, you have learned a lot, and also the industry is much more mature vis-a-vis AI. I think by and large, entrepreneurs and investors are coming to terms with that reality is that AI actually works better with use case focus and vertical focus, because then you can train the workflow engines, you can train the vocabulary, you can train the domain knowledge and work the domain knowledge into AI such that you have real solutions, and those are much easier to sell than a platform technology that is kind of all-purpose.
But the caveat I would give you is this: a lot of VCs have learned this. They believe that AI should be very vertical. The company itself should be very vertical, function focused. I actually think that's a terrible idea, and I'll tell you why. AI is any existing company in a domain which has a lot of data and has pre-existing sales relationships with customers is going to beat that AI startup if it is very function focused. So the issue becomes, I'm going to make up a hypothetical story here. I'm not talking of a specific company. Imagine I was a sales optimization in manufacturing startup. The problem there would be Salesforce would be the most obvious acquirer. And if I came up with something really beautiful, Salesforce could replicate just the AI part of it, and they would have a competitive advantage. So many of these ideas actually don't pan out because there are no obvious next steps. They eventually have to grow beyond that focus area to try to become a company that can go IPO or find many, many acquirers, which can become difficult.
I'll counter that. Hang on. I will counter. It's a very good discussion, actually. I will counter that by saying that you picked an example that is quite particular because Salesforce is so strong in AI and in sales focused use cases and workflows. There are many, many domains where that domain knowledge doesn't exist randomly, and the workflow knowledge doesn't exist, and AI knowledge doesn't exist. So take transportation. Transportation is a category where the domain knowledge is much more esoteric, and the AI knowledge is much more rare. So if you build something in transportation, you build something in a domain that is not as well penetrated by a major technology company like Salesforce, you have a different answer to this question.
this would be one of the things only time will tell moments, right? So I will agree that there is a continuity here. So on one end, if there is no existing provider that has access to the data today, like they are basically doing the enterprise applications of yesteryear today in that domain and have a dominant position, then your argument is very valid. I just think that in most domains, there is a legacy provider, the equivalent of the Oracle applications, and then if there's a later generation, the equivalent of the Salesforces, where they actually have a significant position. If there is such an entrenched player, then the dynamic shifts towards them in the world of AI, because large volumes of data and and deep domain knowledge and existing relationships will beat the power of just the AI algorithm itself. In fact, one of the decisions we took is we decided to not specialize on AI algorithms either. This is actually a very interesting aspect to Aible. Most of our competitors are trying to build AI. And the thing I keep telling people is, look, the domain of machine learning technologies is growing faster than Moore's law. So if you think about the advancements in ML, like one of the funniest things you should do is go take a look at GitHub and look at how many ML-oriented projects get checked in every day, right? It is absolutely growing exponentially. So what you don't want to do, just like in Moore's law, if you build your technology to a specific generation of the chip and you customized it beautifully and you got 15% improvement over a generic code, what would happen is Moore's law was changing the underlying technology so fast that any software that was portable would always beat the software that was custom to a specific chip. Same thing is happening now. You don't want to build to a specific underlying algorithm. One day it's TensorFlow that is dominant, other day it's SparkML that's dominant, thinks that there'll be something else that's dominant. You actually want to be at a meta layer on top of all of the underlying AI technologies. You also want to be at a meta layer for use cases and functions. What you should focus in on is how do I make these technologies accessible to business users? iPad, or if you think of Apple in general, Apple never really innovated on the underlying technologies. They innovated on how do I make these technologies very, very accessible and easy to use for a broader market, and thus they build a beautiful business out of that. And that's what I think, iTunes is another example of that. They didn't make the music, they just made the music much more accessible to people. And that's what I think where the real opportunity to build a dominant company in AI comes from.
Some of what you say is correct, but if you are Apple, you can do some things that a small startup cannot do. So your point is well taken that you shouldn't be working on core AI algorithms. I completely agree with that. Absolutely in agreement with you, because there's too much of that right now. You cannot differentiate. I think the real opportunity for small startups, and remember one thing, you're doing your second startup. There are a lot of people, especially in our community, who are doing their first startup and have no bootstrapping cash to work with. You do. You have bootstrapping cash to work with. So that's a fundamental difference between a first-time entrepreneur going into this domain versus you, who is a second-time entrepreneur going into this domain. You have credibility. You can raise money based on your past credibility, and you have cash with which to bootstrap. So for people who are going into this domain, if they try to go too horizontal without any differentiated domain knowledge that they can start building something on, they have no chance.
Now, as I said, this is one of those cases where I think there's a continuity here, and people will end up in different points. One thought on this before we move on, because your point is valid. Just remember, Apple wasn't Apple when Apple was started, and the fascinating thing about
Apple didn't do iTunes when Apple was started.
Yeah, no, but what Apple did is the first thing it did was take a bunch of components, put it inside a breadbox, and the second thing it did is added the monitor to that and added the smile on that monitor. And that was the key difference, that before Apple, everybody was giving PC assembly kits and saying, hey, assemble it. And there were a couple of other guys like Apple at the same time too. Yes. But the big shift was taking it from assembling something to turning it into something I plug in and it works. And I think that smile on the Mac was the most brilliant thing. Just how do I make this technology non-threatening? So
Yes,
that's where
so
I'm
as
coming
far as
from,
the
but your point
middle,
is valid.
as far as the middle layer of AI is concerned, you're right. It's that Apple analogy applies, that you shouldn't be going too far to the lower levels of, guts of AI development right now. I completely agree with you. They should be assembled, not built. Completely
Exactly
agree
right.
with you. But I think that
Because
is necessary but not sufficient. That's the point I'm making is for somebody who's trying to build a little AI company, get things off the ground, and you'll
right.
see this in today's presentation, you'll see somebody who's doing AI, but is doing it at a level where there is differentiated domain knowledge, and that's something that's the only way small little companies are cutting through the noise right now, is by going in somewhere with differentiated domain knowledge.
Yeah, and let's drop back out to my BeyondCore story, because you rightly pointed out Aible is my second company. Let's talk about how we bootstrapped in the days of BeyondCore, because I think there's an important aspect to that. Because I was building an AI company in BeyondCore, what was really important to us was having data to train. Because remember, this is the time when we were still handcrafting AI. This wasn't, billions of dollars research having gone into something like TensorFlow that you just pick up and use. So what we decided was the thing that we needed the most to bootstrap was access to data. That was more valuable than anything else. So, and it was very difficult to go to individual companies and get data out of them, because that was a, very hard sales lift. So what we did is, to the point you were making, how do you get leverage? Because I think entrepreneurs find leverage. So the leverage we found was, the leverage we found is we went in and said, well, the outsourcing companies, if I think of business process outsourcing, these BPO companies work with lots of different customers. They have access to lots of customers' data, and there's only about 20 really large ones. Well, can we go work with the BPO companies to analyze their customers' data? And we eventually ended up working with 8 of the 10 largest BPO companies, if I remember correctly. I might be off by 1 or 2, but most of the large ones we ended up working with in some form or the other. And we used to go to them and say, hey, look, we will analyze your data. We'll do it for giving you a Six Sigma quality evaluation, because that's what BPOs cared about. They did not care about the thing we eventually wanted to build, but they cared a lot about quality evaluations of their data. And we worked with them, and the one thing we had in our contracts was anything our AI learns from your data, we get to keep, but we don't get to keep your data. And that's what we systematically used and built up over many, many years, the AI we needed to actually succeed. So yes, my bootstrapping was not, hey, let's go, we have a lot of money. I had to figure out a way to bootstrap my data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, today we are at an age where there is a lot more data available in the market, but you still, as a small startup, you still have to create that leverage of where your data set is going to come from, and how do you plug into that data set, how do you get access to that data set to train your models. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Fabulous discussion, Arijit.
And the value you create to get the data may very well and should very well be different from the value you create when you have your AI. So people need to stay focused on what is phase 1 and what is phase 2. People often obsess of if all these things happened, I would have this fantastic company. Well, you have to first figure out what do you need to do to get the things that you need to have a fantastic company. So think through stages. Your first stage might be very different from your second stage.
Yeah. Now, talk a bit about Salesforce.com. Obviously, you had a great exit with BeyondCore into Salesforce.com that brought you very close to the Salesforce.com ecosystem. What have you learned from that process of how to work with Salesforce.com that you're leveraging in Aible? And I'll give you a bit of my thought on, Salesforce has absolutely knocked the ball out of the park on their PaaS strategy, platform as a service strategy. And so many companies have been built in a very capital efficient way on top of the Salesforce.com PaaS. Viva is an example that I absolutely love to death. $4 million, that's all they spent. They turned basically $4 million to $600 million plus in revenue and multi-billion market cap. They raised money, but they didn't use the money. It was really that they built on top of Force.com and built an incredibly capital efficient company. So around Salesforce.com, a lot of these success stories have come together, and I know many CEOs who have very effectively leveraged Salesforce.com. Now, you are doing this with an AI company in, the 2018, 2019, coming up to 2020 time frame when everything is so much more mature. So tell us how you are leveraging the platform and the ecosystem and the app exchange, the marketplace, everything.
So we are somewhat in the early days into integrating into Salesforce, though we are a Salesforce partner and we are a Tableau partner, and Tableau, of course, got acquired by Salesforce.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we did is we built what's called a Tableau extension, and similarly we have a Salesforce plugin where you can experience Aible inside Salesforce, inside Tableau, because our key point was you want to meet the business user where they are. You don't want to force them to learn one more tool. And when you plug into something like Salesforce, which is so broadly adopted and used by people all the time, essentially what you're doing is you're augmenting their daily lives. You're giving them the information they need at the moment of taking a decision in the platform they already use. That is a far lower friction way to have an impact than trying to convince them to pay attention to you and move to your app, move to you. That kind of a shift of attention for a business user is very difficult to earn. It is much easier to get the insight into the application they already use. So that has been one of the key aspects of working with Salesforce and Tableau for us, and we are continuing to expand and do more.
And is there a particular use case in that ecosystem that you are getting a lot of traction around? And question number 2 on that is, are you getting a lot of leads from that ecosystem?
Yeah, so both are true. In the case of Salesforce, is much more use case focused than in the case of Tableau, because Tableau tends to be very general purpose, so you can actually use Aible in a very general purpose way. The Tableau use case has just been, if you already have data in a dashboard, click a button, and now you can do AI on top of that, right? But in the Salesforce use case, we started again, because it's Salesforce, we started with sales optimization. So there is a case study that Gartner did where the CEO of a 150-year-plus sewing company, Mero Sewing Company, the CEO went in, clicked a button, connected Aible to Salesforce, and 2 hours later, even though he had dirty data, by the way, his data was just like everybody's data, there was nothing special done. 2 hours later, he had found $3 million of leads that had been ignored before Aible got involved. So when you can help a business user in 2 hours find $3 million of value in a platform that they already use, that fundamentally changes the art of the possible. Because people are used to thinking, oh, to get value out of AI, I have to spend 3-6 months, and I have to get data scientists in, and I have to do all this work. But when you can show customers that they can get to real value in a matter of hours, and by the way, we don't promise hours. We typically tell customers that, hey, you'll get this done in about 2 weeks to a month, which is already exciting for them. But that's just to keep some safety in case we run into trouble. But most people from start to finish are getting the actual project done in about 9 minutes, but they're getting to value where they have identified something of value very, very quickly. So that's where the use case focus helps.
Fantastic. So switching the line of questioning a little bit, Arijit, on team building. You are doing this in the Bay Area. What has been your experience? Of course, when you were doing BeyondCore, the AI wasn't hot. Now AI is red hot. How are you dealing with the talent wars, and how have you structured your company?
So I'm a little strange in that even though I've been in the domain of outsourcing and I've been in the leadership of outsourcing associations and stuff, I have never actually outsourced core development. And I tend to
Are you talking outsource or offshore?
Outsource or offshore. Like I have always had all my core people in one geography, in fact, usually in one room.
Office, okay.
And a lot of people have told me that's insane. And I'll tell you what I do and what we are going to do soon. I just fundamentally believe that AI or algorithms or anything that is truly innovative, the best way to do it is to get developers who are orders of magnitude better. Like the people I work with, their productivity is orders of magnitude better than a typical developer, right? and put them in a room, put them only with A-plus players, and then ask the impossible of them. And they will deliver over and over again. They will deliver. But by having people in the room and not allowing the walls, like my data scientist is sitting right next to my DevOps guy, is seated right next to my UX guy who's seated right next to the designer, what you end up happening is rather than having silos inside the company, when the data science team is coming up with something interesting, before they start doing too much, they quickly ask the middleware guy, hey, what would happen if I could give you this? And that guy asks the UX guy, hey, what could you do if I could do this? I mean, they eliminate a lot of waste that you would have if you didn't have that kind of intensity in the room. Now, the flip side of that is now that we are building many of these adapters. So when we are building a Salesforce adapter, that we outsource to a vendor who's not, I think they're I think partly in Canada and partly in India. But the point is that when we are building the SAP adapter, we plan to outsource that. Anything that is to the periphery, where you're taking the core algorithms, core product, and connecting it to things, that I think can and should be done at lower cost locations because you can't get that much volume of talent in the Bay Area. But the reason I'm still doing the core team is around 30 people. Yeah.
30 people. See, the issue, and address this issue for me for a moment. The issue that a lot of people are having right now is this hotshot AI developers all want to do their own startups. So you have managed to build a core team of 30 people who are willing to work on Aible. What is the experience? What distinguishes people from who want to assemble together and build something with you versus people who want to branch off and do their own?
So let's make it even more interesting. Several of my developers are people who walked away from hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of golden handcuffs from Salesforce to come back and work for me again. Okay. And by the way, for me, that's a huge responsibility because when I see people walk away from that much guaranteed money, and these are young people, right? Like $1 million is a lot to them, right? That's a responsibility that you take on because you're like, I can't let these people down because they believed and decided to join. And if I look at my broader team, all of the new people who have come on, they're fantastic. Like one of the guys was one of the top people at Google on Bayesian algorithms. These are like people who had many, many options in front of them. But I think the difference is we, both at BeyondCore and at Aible, we built a truly meritocratic, no politics, no BS, no waste kind of environment. See, the reason most of these hotshot engineers want to go do their own startup is because they can't put up with the bureaucracy of somebody else telling them what to do. They feel disempowered. They feel like they're a cog in the wheel. And guess what? You don't get the top-tier talent to stay if they feel that way. In my entire career, I have had 3 regretted churns. And by the way, every one of those 3, I remember them. 2 of them have actually come back and, we had discussions about whether they can come work. But in my entire career, though I've fired many people, I've let go many people, I've only had 3 regretted churns. And the reason for it is the most important thing for an entrepreneur is not to be namby-pamby and make it a soft and easy environment because the top-tier talent actually doesn't want a soft and easy environment. It is an environment where you hold people to the highest standards possible. They know they're doing the top-level work they could possibly do. They love the people around themselves. They love the mission. They know why they're doing what they're doing. That kind of an environment, which is very high pressure, but very respectful of that individual's talent and abilities. That's the only kind of environment where you'll attract the top-tier talent. And I've just been really lucky in the kind of people who have considered working with me. And I really think that's the most important part of making a company grow to the scale I need able to grow. Because you can, as an entrepreneur, you can push a certain bit, but at some point, if you are the bottleneck to the growth of your company, you're dead. And right now I have this rule, I only make 10 decisions a day. Over time, I want to bring it down to 5 decisions a day because I'm basically forcing my team to do as many of the decisions themselves.
Make their own decisions. Yeah, that's great. Now, last question.
Somehow
where
my
are
camera
you?
suddenly turned off, but I can.
Your camera turned off, but your voice is coming through. So you can figure out the camera situation, but I'm going to switch us to the entrepreneur pitches in a moment, but let me ask one last question. Where is your core team right now? In San Francisco?
Bay Area, Foster City, Bay Area, with a wonderful view of the bay and great places to walk right outside the building, because you want to not have a boiler room environment, even though it's an intense environment.
And where do you live?
San Carlos, so very close.
Very close by. Great. So you're not dealing with Bay Area commute and all these problems that are becoming issues for Silicon Valley these days.
So we actually took a vote among all of the developers, all of the teammates, to figure out where we would locate. And that was important because I did not vote on where we were going to have the office. And one of my co-founders, he's in the East Bay, and he's doing an hour's commute. And if he had gone by hierarchy, he could have easily said, hey, I'm the co-founder, I'm going to minimize my commute. But the team saw that we literally took votes from everyone, and we took the point that was convenient for everyone. And that, I think, is, again, how you build the community, is your team needs to know that the decisions are being taken on merit, not based on who's the most senior person in the room.
Yeah, very good. Excellent, excellent leadership, Arijit. Let's switch to the entrepreneur pitches. And if you just give me a moment, I'm going to set some expectations before we get you guys going with your own pitches. And Arijit will stay and discuss your businesses with you. This is a safe working session. You don't need to be defensive. You don't need to be nervous. This is just, we are here to help you. There's no other agenda on this call. The only thing that I want you to think about is, it's fine if you disagree with the feedback you get here today from me, from Arijit, from anybody else. That's fine. It's your venture. You're going to make the decisions. One thing, please remember, not all businesses can raise money. Not all businesses should raise money, and raising money doesn't guarantee success. We talked a lot today about Salesforce.com. This is a company that got rejected by 27 VCs. So in the process, you're going to have to remember that no from a venture capitalist doesn't mean that it's, that your business is not going to work or anything like that. You have to remember that no could mean not yet. No could mean that this particular investor doesn't have the expertise to invest in your company, or it could also mean that your business currently is not a financeable situation. So you have to understand at a more strategic level what is happening in your business and what is the right next step strategy for your situation. All right, we're going to go to Sharat Satyanarayana from Bangalore. Sharat is actually a member of the 1 million by 1 million premium program. So Sharat, please go ahead and get going. Are you on the call, Sharat? Your line is muted. You need to unmute your line.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Ederlabs.
Ederlabs, yes. Arijit, that was very insightful. Thank you for those lots of pointers that I've made notes. My name is Sharat. I'm from Bangalore. I'm a co-founder of Ederlabs. We're a team of 5, and I'm attempting a different twist to the pitch after going through the curriculum. Fundamentally, in a nutshell, we accelerate enterprise AI adoption with a focus on data privacy. Next slide, please. So I'd like for all of you to just imagine, what if we could potentially get multiple companies to share intelligence about their operations and their customers, but without having to necessarily share the data, just so the overall benefits could be seen by the customers and end users themselves. Next slide, please. So we've tested this particular hypothesis with a few enterprises here in India, and one point that came across is there is some kind of enterprise data that might be valuable only from one perspective, but how it might actually be valuable in combination with another data set from a complementary or adjacent company is something that many people cannot really consider at this stage. And given that AI has made it really easy to stitch together brilliant insights across various data sets, across companies and geographies, what if we could make such intelligence multidimensional, to give a better sense of how to target markets and make the life of end customers easier? Right. So, is it really possible for such AI-based co-opetition, to get multiple business competitors to collaborate in the hope of creating mutual benefits, right? Where we believe the sort of singular concern that comes, with such a question is around the sensitivity of such data and exposure of such data. Most companies wouldn't want to obviously share such important data publicly. So earlier we were a team that was developing machine learning models for the retail industry, and we experienced this problem from a different point of view. And today I'm sort of trying to get a sense of how would enterprises potentially consider working with one another without having to necessarily share their data and to use common models. Next slide, please. An interesting development that has come together in August of this year is that a lot of these brands that you see on the screen, Intel, VMware, Azure, Google Cloud, they've come together to form what is called as the Confidential Computing Consortium, and this is a growing trend. Even Gartner has now has given it a phrase, and it's called privacy preservation techniques. Right, please. So this is the product that we've developed. It's called Fluid, and what it essentially is, you could think of it as an AI project management tool that sits at the server level within the data center, within the environment of the data owner, and essentially either you could have two use cases. One where a model could essentially work on multiple data sets within those server environments, ensuring that the computation between model and the data is completely secure, such that the IP on both sides is completely private. Alternatively, and I'll explain the second use case through an example. Next slide, please. The examples on the last one, but we have begun two pilot projects in India and are pursuing two more in Indonesia and one in the EU. Next slide, please. So this is our very first pilot use case. There's a large food tech unicorn in India that works with numerous AI startups, and they need to share their data for a lot of these very interesting use cases. The company obviously wants to protect such data and not really open it up to any third party for various reasons. One of them just being that what if the third party gets backdoor entry and then the enterprise data gets exposed. So what Fluid does is it enables such a large enterprise with sensitive data to work across multiple vendors where their models could be remotely deployed into the secure computation space within the data owner's environment. And this we have provisioned for on-premise as well as on cloud as well. That's it.
So, Sharat, in the interest of time, why don't we go to your question, and I will let Arijit answer your questions first, and we'll see how much we can get covered today in this session. I think we understand, everybody in the room understands what you're doing. I obviously know what you're doing, so go ahead and ask your question.
So basically, after going through the curriculum, specifically around positioning, until the last roundtable, all we were talking about was secure computation, facilitating data privacy, and that was almost always around the what. And why should it matter is something that I was struggling with. Today's attempt is basically to explore if such a narrative might work. So I would love to hear all of your inputs, Arijit, yours as well, if this is something that resonates with what you're seeing in the Bay Area, specifically in the US market.
Arijit, why don't you take the question?
Yeah, so I'll actually tell him what he needs to know more than the precise question he ended up at the end. For any entrepreneur, it's really important to know where your competitive advantage comes from, right? So you have a very interesting idea. It's a talked about idea. Yeah, nobody would be surprised about somebody being interested in the problem you're trying to solve, right? Given that, your differentiation will be one of execution, right? Can you make this work whereas many other people are unable to make it work? Now, the most useful phrases I saw in your presentation was there was one place where you talked about how you're trying to sell through AI service providers and AI IT firms, and then there was another AI service providers, and then there was a different one where you talked about AI software firms. If you can legitimately pull off a partnership strategy with services firms and technology firms where you become a bridge to the data access for them, and they really adopt it, you know what, you might have a business. But just know that your business, and it's really important to know this, your business, unless I'm missing something, the differentiator is not going to be the technology. The differentiator is not going to be that you have found a market nobody has found. The differentiator is going to be, can you execute better than everybody else? And that is, as long as you know and understand and appreciate that, this is what, this is interesting, right?
What would it take for you? Is this something that your company is encountering in the market, and are you looking for a partner to work with?
Yeah, so we solved the data privacy problem in a very different way, and we built it into the product precisely because this is a big issue. So the way we do it is, let's say your data is we keep the data in the customer's own AWS or Azure account. We train our models in the customer's account, so we never got access to their data. And in fact, the final trained model is something we don't get to see. So that is one approach to doing it. He's doing something different, I'm sure, because he's talking about transferring insights from one to the other. So he's probably got some transfer learning in there. But I don't actually want to know how you do things, to be very honest. But the point of the matter is the issue he's highlighting is absolutely real. And that is precisely why pretty much everybody has this in their horizon. The question is going to be, does he have something that is better than what these companies are already thinking of doing? And is it something that is going to be valuable to enough different companies that he can build a business?
Well, and also in terms of partnerships, there needs to be partners who do not have this already built into the product, who are looking outside of their company to find a solution.
Yeah, I do think most consulting companies, if he's targeting them, haven't quite figured this part out, to be very honest. So there is a potential there, but there are enough tools coming out of large vendors where I think the consulting companies could gravitate to that. Again, your solution might be very different, but just know that you're not going to win based on your technology differentiation. Your big problem is going to be if somebody else, if Google or Amazon or somebody big announces an open source project that does something in this space, which they're trying to do, would your partner say, I would rather take the thing from the famous company than the thing from the small Indian startup? That's your risk.
Of course. All right, Sharat, we'll continue the conversation in the next private roundtable next week. I'm going to move on to the next presenter for today, okay? And if you have time, you can ask more questions later in the session, okay? Ravi Amble, you're next.
Thank you, Shobha. Good day to everybody. Appreciate the opportunity. And Arijit, I think your talk was very good learning. Today I would like to present Suquino, a fully integrated telehealthcare services platform. Next slide, please. Been in telehealth or telemedicine for the last 15 years. I've been a serial entrepreneur with 4 exits. Still learning, still newbill, still a lot of butterflies in my stomach. We have whatever level of success that I've achieved in the telehealth space. I've been very lucky. NASA has been my springboard. We developed an algorithm to transmit information real-time over hybrid networks. As you all probably know very well, NASA has a medical innovation technology program called MEDITAC that they run out of the Commonwealth University of Virginia. And we built an algorithm. They used it under a clinical trial, saved the life of a person undergoing a gallbladder operation in a mobile surgical unit in Ecuador. And because the anesthesiologist in Virginia was able to read a 3-lead ECG and blood pressure remotely via SATCOM. That's been my springboard. Fast forward, we came under the Indian telemedicine program under the successful clinical trials, connected 2 emergency clinics in rural Nevada, Elko and Battle Mountain, to the University of Reno Medical Center, brought down the cost of airlift by more than 45%. This is in the 06-07 timeframe. They were doing an airlift on an average every month. So we can imagine that just a 2-bed emergency clinic was dropping about $500,000 just on airlifts. And what we had was very quickly here, our algorithmic software on one desktop, and I struck a partnership with Polycom for the desktop video. We developed synchronization software. So the provider sitting at the University of Reno Medical Center.
Ravi, we have a limited amount of time. Let's get down to what you're doing with this company.
Surely, please. So what we're trying to do is all the experience and knowledge is going into focusing this platform to long-term care, primarily to the long-term care industry. So what the platform has, next slide, please, a device integration layer, information acquisition abstraction layer, transport communication layer, storage, distribution. My vision was kind of very simple. How can we build a TIPCO for telehealth, so to speak? There is intelligence that we are generating or developing at 3 layers, systems level or system delivery, workflow delivery, clinical delivery. We have gained partnerships with Microsoft and Advantech, and we are RRK ready to Intel. Partnerships are going really well. We have attracted very good traction with the long-term care industry. Matter of fact, my flagship account is a long-term care facility called Lincoln Glen Manor in the Almaden County in my neighborhood. So all the knowledge and the functional requirements have been generated with working with them. I have a team of 12 people, very dedicated, very committed. The overall knowledge and experience in healthcare amongst the 12 people is well over 100 years.
And what brings you here to this forum?
Yeah, what I would like to, my questions to the forum would be, we have started a roadshow to generate funds, and we have a verbal commitment from a group for the initial seed of $1 million. But what I would like to kind of impress and ask of you is your input or your read or your expert input into this in terms of what we are trying to do today, to how can you help me, our 3-year roadmap. We need about $10 million between our investments that go into the engineering side, investments for business development, and so on. So I need your expert input, and I need your guidance there.
So the first comment I have, Ravi, is this pitch is not satisfactory from my point of view. The kind of pitches I try to get our entrepreneur to get to make a very clear case for what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, what is the market size, etc. I just don't get that from your pitch. So if you were to work with us, the first thing I would have you do is redo your pitch to a point where it answers the questions that an investor would need answered before he or she can make a decision on whether to invest in this company or not. So I'll give you an example where you're talking about total available market, it's not clear to me whether you're presenting a bottom-up TAM analysis or not. What is this? This is like, it seems a bit all over the place to me. I want to see a bottom-up TAM analysis of if your product, what problem does it solve, who is the buyer, at what price point, and what is the bottom-up TAM analysis. This is the minimum an investor needs to answer to be able to decide whether this is a good investment or not, and I haven't got an answer to that question. That's my number one feedback to you. I'm going to turn this feedback, just in the interest of time, 1 second, Ravi. Arijit, would you like to weigh in and...
Yeah, let me try to give you the thing that I think will be most useful for you at this moment in time. I heard two numbers. I heard you need to raise about 10 mil to what you believe you need to achieve. And I also heard you say you're trying to raise 1 mil. One of the issues you need to be very careful about, and I tell entrepreneurs this all the time, no investor wants to invest in you unless they know how the money they invest in the current round will get you to a point where your valuation will be provably better. So if you're telling me I need to have $1 million, and then if the other 9 mil doesn't show up after you have made your invested, I'm dead. No investor wants to get in there. So the question always would be, what are you going to prove with $1 million that will give me confidence that you'll be able to raise the other 9 without any problem. Each round has to reduce risk in a very quantifiable way.
Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe answer all those questions. Sorry, I probably might have taken a few minutes in giving you my background and what we've done in the space. First of all, the $1 million is going to generate pilots. We have pilots signed up. Where is the pain area here? Doctors are unwilling to go to, if you can go to the next slide and show the Saffron telehealth case, I think that can answer a lot of that stuff. Maureen, if you can move the slides down. So where is the pain area? The pain area where we are trying to solve this problem is unnecessary emergency visits, unnecessary readmissions, unnecessary prescription drugs. If you take the long-term care industry, doctors, if you look at the workflow, there is the need for quality healthcare delivery and access on demand. That is the main thing. And
is this a primarily India-facing business, Ravi?
No, it is U.S.-facing business. I think we're on the wrong slide here. We have more than 30,000. If you go up the slides here, that's where I had the chart. We have more than 30,000 assisted living facilities in our country. We have 15,600 nursing homes, 12,400 home health agencies, 4,800 adult daycare centers, and 4,000 hospices. That is the segment that we are targeting. And
so why do you have this India slide there? This presentation really bothers me because it's leading me in all kinds of directions, which is confusing and unsatisfactory. So I'm going to need to move on to the next two presenters. So for the moment, I'm going to leave you with this point that your presentation needs a lot of work, both to address my questions and to address Arijit's question before any investor will touch this. So that's what you need to work on.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Jeff, you are on.
Hi, how are you? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Wonderful. And I just want to say, take a quick second to say thank you. Shramana, this is a wonderful forum. And I wanted to say, I really hope that by the end of this call, I've got everybody excited about solving a problem that's really a crisis in the United States. My name is Jeff Hill. I'm the founder of Remote Home Check. About 8 years ago, I found out that my father was diagnosed with a condition called mild cognitive impairment. And mild cognitive impairment is very similar to Alzheimer's in that you see the degradation of memory and cognitive function over time. And so I've witnessed kind of in slow motion the effects of Alzheimer's. I also witnessed this with my grandmother. And I started to think, personally, I've been in IT for 12 years. I've worked for 4 startups. I've definitely been on an interesting ride in the healthcare and IT space. And personally, I'm an IoT enthusiast. So I started a company that is designed to help seniors to do, one, the thing that they want to do most, which is age in place. 90% of senior citizens in the U.S. today want to age in their own homes. And 1Point, which is our senior care and community solution, which is designed to provide augmented care for senior care communities so that they can deal with the staffing crisis. If we can go to the next slide, please. Today I'm going to talk about 1Point and our focus here. And so senior care communities, what we see today is that long-term care insurance companies have gone in and they've misdiagnosed what's actually going to happen. If you look at long-term care policies, people are living longer than they thought they were going to, and those policies are actually very expensive now, and a lot of those companies are upside down on those policies. And we actually see that seniors want to age in place as well, and so that's really where our focus is. Slide. So to start, we're focusing on three main areas. Staffing, as I mentioned, there's a shortage of caregivers in the senior care community world. This really affects the quality of care. Negligence is something we hear about in the news constantly. How can we really help that situation? Reactive care, Life Alert, great product, but I'd rather be alerted that someone's at risk of falling than having to deal with someone falling. So how can we create proactive care? And then third, how can we help these communities and facilities to manage the risk associated with some of these folks who are indeed at risk? Slide. So to paint the picture, there are 48 million seniors in the United States today. That represents about 15% of the population. Slide. By 2060, that's going to go to 90 million seniors, so 24% of the population at that point. That's going to represent something really interesting in this country that we've not faced before, where we're going to have more people retiring each day than we're actually going to have people being born, which I think is a really interesting situation that we're going to be facing. There's more than 2.3 million seniors at any given time that need assistive care. So this market is constantly growing. We're going to see a lot more in this transition. Who benefits from using 1Point? I want to take a second and I want to talk about what we are actually doing here. We are able to take IoT technology and be able to ascertain all of the activities of daily living that are needed to be able to monitor someone, to really understand things like, can they get out of bed on their own? Can they feed themselves? Are they using the restroom? How often are they using the restroom? All these kind of basic things that we need to understand, we can actually understand that information through IoT. And so as we started to really talk to customers and get engaged, what we found is that there are so many wonderful tools all over this landscape today. We actually just got back from a wonderful conference in in San Diego that was an IoT conference for seniors, and everyone there, as I'm sure the speakers before us, everyone's got an app, right? There's an app for that. And this actually creates a problem that a lot of people don't think about, which is this app sprawl. And when you think about a shortage of caregivers, you've got high turnover rates, you don't have time for these caregivers to be out there having to use 12 different applications potentially to be able to manage one resident. So just like ServiceNow and Zapier and If This Then That have gone out and created what is called the Enterprise Integration Platform as a Service, where we see an open source like Workado, where we can take all this information and put it together to create healthful insights that can give us 1Point, thus the name, where we can see all this data. So who benefits from this? We've got 16, let me run through that real quick here. We look at every aspect of our customer here, the resident, the patient, the family. We want to know how this impacts and how can we disseminate that information to the family. The provider, we're looking at the caregiver, the doctor, how can we integrate these statistics that the medical community has never seen before and integrate that into a system. How can we provide cost relief to insurance companies and reduce claims? And in assisted living communities, how can we help to create a family-friendly environment where we're lowering costs? Slide. Today, we've got 16 communities that are actively looking at what we're doing, and we've got 6 that we're actually installing our system and doing active feedback. We're an Agile shop. Slide. These are the customers that we're working on today. What we found, the 3 main common things. reducing the cost of care. We want to augment that care routine by implementing a single point solution, and we want to reduce the care team staff but to reduce the cost of care and to maximize our effect on the problem that we're seeing. Slide. We're going big. We really think that we're going to close at least one of our trials by the end of the year. By 2020, we're looking at bringing in 36 accounts in our forecast, and each one of our communities is about 100 rooms. We're looking at about $85 to $150 per resident per month, so about $120 per resident as a service. Slide. We're looking at 3-year contracts. The lifetime value when we look at a 3-year engagement for a community is about, a little shy of $500,000. That really is dependent on the type of people that they're seeing, whether it's a memory care facility or other, and what types of technology we're using. And we're looking at about a $16 million ARR in 2020.
$16 million ARR in 2020. You have a pipeline to do a $16 million ARR in 2020.
With 16 active prospects and an additional 6 that we are actively working to, understand this data and put through our agile process, I feel very confident about what we're going to be able to do in 2020.
What is your sales cycle? How long does it take to close one client?
It's directly proportional to the size of the community. So we find that in the short term, these smaller communities are really looking for ways, just like in the business community, to differentiate themselves. We also see, and something I haven't even touched on here, is the home healthcare market, right, which is the other aspect of our business. This is just on our community care solution. I mean, we have a lot of...
You're going all over the place. I asked you a very simple question. Your focus, you've already positioned the company to say that you're focusing on 100-room communities. I'm not interested in home health care. I'm just interested in these 36 deals that are going to get it to 16. You're saying you can get to 16 million ARR by the end of 2020 on the wings of these 36 deals. I just want to know how long does it take to close these 36 deals, these deals, not home health care, nothing, just these 36 deals.
Between 3 and 8 months.
Sorry?
Between 3 and 8 months, depending on the size.
3 and 8 months. So you're saying that all 36 deals in your pipeline are going to close by the end of 2020, which gets you to 16 million ARR. That's what you're proposing here.
Exactly. We have 3 reps in developing, actually, if you want to go to the next slide, we're developing this network of resellers, as well as being able to have 3 salespeople across the country, as well as myself. I have a background in sales. Slide.
Okay.
Quick question. How much do the 6 existing customers pay you till date?
Today, we are only collecting feedback, right? The idea is that we want to go to market with the very best product that we can. So we've gone and done these we've not collected any money yet. We've done this to validate and prove our concept, and then we are going to negotiate the contract on a multi-year basis.
Yeah, big important advice. You heard Sramanna's voice there. You basically, every entrepreneur overestimates what they're going to make. So if you're going to go in and put a number like 16 in 1 year down, you need a lot more evidence of your revenue traction. You basically had us, I think, intrigued. And by the way, one important caveat up front, I actually am an advisor to a company trying to solve this problem. So, take everything I say with that caveat, right?
Sure.
But essentially, I think you had us intrigued up until the point where you put down something like, oh, we are going to do 16 mil in 1 year, but I don't, and I have 6 down and 36 that we're going to close. And then we find out you actually haven't made any money from the 6. That becomes a bridge too far. And so what ends up happening is you then end up hurting your entire presentation, because now people have their cynical brain on, right? They're going to discount everything you said. And then just keep that in mind. You don't have to go promise crazy numbers to raise the kind of money you're trying to raise, probably. So think about what you can, and it's okay to underestimate how much money you're going to make. It's better to overshoot your predictions than undershoot them. I've been on both sides of that coin, and let me assure you, it's much more fun to be on the side where you beat your numbers by an order of magnitude than not.
Well, and the other thing, the reason the skepticism, you're hearing the skepticism from both me and from Arijit, is that companies don't go from 0 to 16 million in ARR from scratch. That's just not the normal trajectory of companies, and you don't have enough credibility in the market for people to take you seriously if you say that you're going to do it, because there's none of the ingredients that convinces us that this is going to happen. So you're saying you close all 36 deals in your pipeline within 2020. It doesn't happen that way. It's not that simple. So I think if I were you, I would temper down. I would kind of really understand. You're a sales guy, right? You understand what it means to do funnel management. 3 months to 8 months is a very large spread. What is your sales cycle? Is it 3 months or is it 8 months? These are two very different businesses.
If I could, guys, let's also be realistic here. I would love, my goal on this, and as a salesperson, is to get you intrigued. I'm glad that you have questions. That means that we should talk. I can't tell you about an entire industry and how I'm going to solve this problem in 6 minutes.
It's not that you have us intrigued. This is our job. We are committed to showing up. I am committed to showing up every Thursday morning and listening to pitches. So it's my job to listen to you and give you feedback. So no, you haven't got me intrigued. You actually blew your credibility with me to some extent by pitching that number.
To Sravana's point, you up until the moment you came up to that slide, I was sitting here thinking, I should connect this guy with this company I'm advising because maybe they can do something together. Then I got to the point you got there, and I'm like, I'm not sure whether I should because I'm not sure how anything he told me is real. So I can definitely say it was not a case of you getting me intrigued. Don't get me wrong. Just because you can provoke doesn't mean you're intrigued.
That's right. There we go.
Absolutely,
all right,
guys.
We need to move on.
I want to say thank you very much.
You're most welcome. And by the way, both of us are telling you that we would like you to deliver 16 million in revenue by the end of 2020. We're not at all saying that you shouldn't deliver 16 million in ARR. That if you can get there, that's fantastic. We're just advising you on how to mitigate the cynicism that you're going to encounter if you pitch it this way.
And I would even say if you actually hit that number and you reach out to either of the two of us, at least in speaking for me, I'd probably invest a bunch of money in you because there's a real problem to be solved. And if you have actually done 16 million a year, guess what? Absolutely crazy. Go for it. Right?
Awesome, guys.
All right. We need to move on, guys. Time. Dayanand Menashi, you're next.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Hello. Hi. First of all, thank you, Shramana, for having me, and thank you, Arijit. Really very wonderful presentations. I've learned a lot just to give a starting. Obviously, everyone has been talking in billion, million. I'll be talking in thousands. So, just a little this thing. So, my business is formrecorder.com. So actually, it's just me, no one else, and I'm still trying to validate. So I'm a software developer, and the problem statement is Google Classroom has become the core application platform for American schools, so it's being used by everyone. And currently, there is, but the biggest pain point is to organize audio assignments. So currently, there is no seamless process. So very simple. Like if you're let's say trying to teach language and you want the students to record something and send it to you, the student has to record it, save somewhere, upload that somewhere, and send it. So think about a second grader. So they are most of the time they are uploading some wrong URL or something like that, and the teachers are not getting the correct audio assignment, and they are spending a whole bunch of time trying to figure out the right thing. So there is a productivity issue here. Now you'll ask how I found out about the problem. My wife is a music teacher, and I overheard herself telling about it. So this was last year, October 2018. So then I was like, you know what, okay, let me just build a solution. It was not even a thought of a business. I just wanted to build a solution for her. So I went about, in a month, I came up something called Google Audio Form. So what it is it's a customized form where, a teacher gives it to the student records their audio in that form, and they click share. That's it. The only one button they click. The form URL gets uploaded to the form. The audio gets uploaded to form recorder cloud, and then the URL gets automatically populated in the form. And then the moment the student clicks submit, the URL with the student details gets automatically sent to the teacher's Google Sheet. So you see, the whole process was a very seamless process. There was no miss. My wife loved it. She started using it. And next one, yes, thank you. So here, sorry, can you go before? I just want to show you. So in last 13 months, about 10,000 audio assignments have been recorded. So many people all over America have been using it, schools and everything. So now, the main point, how does my business plans to make money? So there are two flavors to this thing. The one is the free one where teachers can use it. Another one is the customized version where I charge something. Next slide, please. So my validation so far. So first 11 months, I made zero money. I never ever got a call from anyone to get a customized version because everything they were getting in the free version. So I'd pretty much given up. I was like, you know what? Okay, maybe I did something to the society. Teachers are gaining it. Then on September 29th, something really unusual happened. Just before that, actually 1 week, I saw a huge spike in the usage, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I got a call from a school director in Texas, and they're like really happy with what they were doing because they have 8,000 kids in their school district, and it was taking almost 2 weeks to organize the English learning audio assignment, and they used my basic version. The 2 weeks got reduced to 4 hours. So he immediately saw huge productivity saving, but he wanted the customized version. So I was like, okay, I can do it, and I built it and I sold him for $4,950. Okay, next slide, please. Now, what happened is after that, there are two other people. This is all word of mouth. I not spent a single dollar in advertising, and they also want a similar thing. So now what I'm thinking is there is some value. So I did some maths, very high level. There are at least more than about 400 school districts like that one, which have more than 5,000 students, because this is only applicable where there are a lot of students, right? I'm not targeting small schools and all those small school districts. And out of that, so that is my core market, but I still want to validate because I'm not validated. So my next strategy, can you go to next one, please? So who is my core customer? My core customer are the director of technology of school districts because they make the technology decision whether to buy or not, and all the schools in their school district use it in America. So my next roadmap is the Texas school district is going to present their case study from February 3rd to 7th in Texas TechEd conference. All this is going to be free. So he's going to go and tell how they benefited from it. So hopefully there are 8 other schools in Texas that I feel would at least try my version, and I don't know, maybe they might end up buying some of them. But again, I don't know anything. Then second is the digital banner advertising. I'm thinking with astd.org, which has about 1 million unique visitors a month as per their media.
I think we understand what you're doing. I actually love your presentation. I love these kinds of down-to-earth, real clean validation.
Thank you.
So the thing that you need to do right now, since you understand very clearly who is buying and what is the spec, what is the positioning, go find on LinkedIn all the directors of technology of the school districts that you're after and go directly talk to them, and that's your sales strategy.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about it. I was thinking otherwise. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Do you have any comments for Dayanand?
Yeah, so the things you have to worry about a little bit, right? Firstly, by the way, test out whether you can make a money from ad supported as opposed to trying to do direct sales, because if you can get some money.
Yeah, sorry, just to give you one, Abhijit, sorry. The ad supported, the reason it's not allowed is because then the school districts will not allow my app to be, they will not approve. They don't like any advertisements. That's the thing.
Okay, no, but the point is they can either do their custom version where there won't be any ads, and now they can approve it, or they can do the free version where there would be ads, right? So the point is you don't want to create a binary world where you can only sell to school districts over a certain size, and you have to do a direct sales approach and a customized thing. You want to have some way to monetize the fact that many people are using a free version, for example.
Well, they may block, if it's an ad-supported version, school districts may block free adoption.
Oh, they may block the free adoption. Yeah, that's a fair point. But that's a fair point. One of my concerns, though, if I was thinking of this, but this could be a very interesting lifestyle business. The question becomes, can this be a long-term sustainable business? The issue you have is firstly...
This one I'm going to stop you on. We are very supportive of small lifestyle businesses. 1 million by 1 million. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. Our mission is not to finance 1 million companies. So this may not be a fundable business. That's just fine.
No, and I was not going to say that's a negative. That was literally going to be my point, is that maybe he should not get distracted by trying to get funding, but here are the caveats. Like, let me give him the caveats because he needs to worry about the caveats potentially. So this is a pattern of technologies where a big guy leaves a bug or a very visible gap to their product, and people make money building to that gap, right? You can think of many businesses like that. The issue becomes when that big guy fixes that bug, does that business sustain itself? So think through that. You know, what would happen if Google did something simple to add this kind of capability there? The second thing you have to think about is what is the value of the customization? Could you charge more? Could you charge less? Should this be an annual contract? There are things to think through there because I don't quite see how what you're charging is quite related. On one hand, it feels kind of small. Is it enough to sustain a business? I think that's true. But to Sramana's point...
there I did a little homework. Actually, there are people offering this, but they are charging, there is one company, I don't want to name, $60,000 they are charging, and they want them to buy everything else. So the school doesn't have so much money. So you're right. I mean...
And I think the reason I like this, the way you're going about it is, if you can actually engage 100 school districts, directors of technology, 100 school districts, and start selling them this solution, you start making money, start generating cash, but you also get a tremendous amount of customer input, which will give you access to the customer understanding and customer intimacy, and you start understanding the workflows that you need to build in, and that's what creates sustainability. And that's where you can build in differentiation and sustainable value.
So Shramana, just to add one point, I took your course a few years back. I don't know if you remember. That time I was planning some other...
I remember your name. That's why I was wondering where I remember your name from.
No. And the thing is, I still remember your one lesson has really stuck to my mind. That is segmentation. You said do not go after whole world. Go with very small and the bootstrapping. But thank you so much for all the education. I feel I owe you. Thank you. But
You're welcome.
I just had one question to both of you. Do you have any other person who is in this tech ed world with whom I can partner?
It's a broad question because it depends partner on what. So we'll take that offline. I'm actually getting to the end of this. I have a meeting that I have to jump off from, so I need to wrap up this session on time today. So thank you all the presenters. You've done a great job of presenting. And Arijit, thanks a lot for staying through the session today and dialoguing with the entrepreneurs. Your presentation was fantastic. I think the discussion was great, and also your input to each entrepreneur was excellent. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks again, Arijit. Thank you, Shramana. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. Best of luck. This is a hard life. Just remember, entrepreneurship is the hardest thing you'll ever do. So just make sure that it's worth doing, right? If you can't imagine doing something else, go be an entrepreneur. Go solve that problem. Thanks. Bye,
all
everyone.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, folks, if you like what we are doing here, refer 1 million by 1 million to your friends and family members who are doing entrepreneurship and in a serious way. You know, there are a lot of people who have loosey-goosey expectations of what entrepreneurship is, and this is not the place for it. We are a very rigorous platform. Everything, you know, works in a very rigorous, study-intensive, work-intensive, execution-intensive, strategy-intensive way. So you're going to have to put in a lot of work to get value out of this program. We will teach you,
I love your cartoon videos that I shared with my friends. The cartoon videos you have where you're thinking about. No, really, those are really nice. I have shared with many people. Thank you.
So just a quick summary of how to use the program. Go to 1Mby1M.com. Everything is there. You just have to spend some time understanding what's on there, how we've described the program, and you should be able to, you know, make a decision on whether we are for you or not. We are not for everybody. If you're not comfortable with self-learning, this is not the right program for you. You will find a great blog where you learn a lot from case study after case study, thought leadership interviews. You'll learn a lot from there. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series is, again, a case study-based book series available on Amazon. You'll learn a lot from those books on particular topics, whether it's positioning or bootstrapping or bootstrapping using services, etc. These roundtables happen every week and recordings are available, so feel free to use these for your learning. Our full acceleration program is 1 million by 1 million premium, where we offer extensive methodology guidance, a full digital curriculum, business development help. We have a tremendous network. By joining the premium program, you are plugging into that network. We do similar sessions in private members-only formats. That's the strategy consulting, mentoring, coaching, whatever. The format that you saw today is effectively our project-based coaching format. We do help you with financing, but you have to be fundable. And we will help you to get there if your business has those characteristics. Some businesses are not fundable, and they need to be built as bootstrap businesses. That's fine. But if you are fundable and if you're in the program, we do introduce you to the right kinds of investors, the right set of investors. And we have a lot of clout in the media, so we do media relations as well. So that's it. Go to the website, do the self-assessment. These are the questions investors would ask you. Make sure you ask those questions of yourselves and try to answer those questions. If you get stuck, you can go to 1 million by 1 million basic, which is our curriculum-only option, and learn. That's what it seems like Dayanand did that and learned through that process. Curriculum is very rich and very pragmatic, so you will learn a lot from that. Go to the website, dig around what to expect from premium, what to expect from basic, FAQs, video FAQs, tons of material, full description of the curriculum. We are a case study-based program, over 1,000 successful case studies of entrepreneurs, including 100-plus unicorns, 400-plus venture-funded companies, another 400-plus bootstrap companies. You'll learn a lot from the curriculum. Our philosophy is bootstrap first, raise money later. It's a lean, capital-efficient bootstrap startup methodology. And that is it for today. Upcoming free roundtables this November 27th, the last one before Thanksgiving, and then I'm traveling for a bit, so we'll meet back here on December 19th. There are no free roundtables in the beginning of December this year. And then we have our online rendezvous live streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. The next one is November 26th. And then the one after that will be December 17th. In-person rendezvous, the next one is December 18th and then January 22nd. So those are in Silicon Valley at Cafe Boroni. If you're local or visiting, please come by. That is all. I have 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute to take one question. So if you have a question, feel free to type in. I will take it from the public chat. If you have questions about the program, contact Irina Patterson, irina@1mby1m.com. Anybody? Questions? Quickly. I have to run today. All right, we're going to adjourn. We will talk in the next roundtable. Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.